All these public sector workers should get a pay rise next year, the Chancellor's officially ending the pay freeze. But today, ministers couldn't guarantee that any rise would be more than inflation.
What I'm saying is that the Chancellor is signalling the fact that he wants to give the public sector, the 5 million people in the public sector, a pay rise, and that will then be for the pay review body to take the evidence, look at the prevailing conditions, and then recommend a figure back to the Chancellor.
Public sector pay rises were capped at 1% from 2013 through to 2018. And then, of course, most public sector wages have been frozen for the last year. But in the meantime, the cost of living in the form of inflation has still been going up by an average 2.5% each year. Nurses were among the few public sector workers who did get a pay rise, 3% last year, but others believe they've lost out in real terms. And unions fear government departments won't get any new money to fund any new pay rise.
What we want the chancellors to say in the budget is, yep, we're relaxing pay freeze and I'm going to give a significant amount of money to the departments to actually fund that pay increase.
A pay rise for public sector workers in social care will no doubt be welcome there. But those representing private or charitable homes fear it'll bring its own problems.
The reality is when that pay freeze is taken off, there will be an increase in the salary for people in the NHS, and that's the presumption. For us in the private sector, what that means is holding on to staff becomes more and more challenging because differentials are such that we can't usually meet them. And I think that is a problem when we've already got a shortage of staff.
But at this school in Leicester, any kind of rise for teachers will be welcome.
I think at the moment anything would be better than nothing. I think when faced with 0%, which is what teachers were told this year, then obviously that's not any incentive.
Some wage decisions will be made by devolved governments, and public sector workers will have to wait to find out just how much they'll be getting. But at least they should know none of them will be denied a wage rise of some kind next year.
Let's speak to Andy now in Westminster. Andy, we've had several of these announcements from the Chancellor this week. Fair to say some MPs unhappy about the way we're getting a lot of these details ahead of tomorrow's budget.
Absolutely, Danny. The Speaker accused the government of taking the House of Commons for granted, but lots of Conservative MPs were saying we don't understand why you're briefing all these details to the papers before you announce it to the House of Commons in the budget. Now, the man sent out to defend the government, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, a man called Simon Clarke, said, look, we're actually not briefing the core, as he described it, of the budget, so there's no market-sensitive information, for instance, on individual tax rates. But all the same, a lot of anger in the Commons today, but I don't think the government will be that displeased if the overall narrative going into tomorrow's budget is basically of extra spending on things like the NHS and also stories about pay and wages going up. If you like, framing the way the budget is going to be presented tomorrow. They'll probably quite like that idea. It's up to the rest of us tomorrow to have a good look when we get the actual details.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Andy Bell there.